Hello, once again. This is Peter Palmiotti of Human Art Studio, and today is Making Comics and Art, episode 44. It's not all fun and games with my special guest, Steve Ogden. Welcome, sir.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. I've been following you and your work for years now. I remember, two things. Moontown back in the day.
Yeah.
And the Braincast.
Right. Yeah. The Braincast was kind of weird because I don't know which Braincast you're talking about because one was a comic and one was a podcast.
The podcast.
All right. And they had nothing to do with each other. Yeah, no, I like the podcast. The only podcast coming to you direct from my brain to yours. I used to record that on my way to work every day. It was great fun.
Oh, I enjoyed it immensely. And yeah, Moontown. What you did finish that? Did you not? I forget now.
I drew about 70 pages of that, and I found that as I got my whole point of drawing Moontown was to get better at drawing comics. And I found that as I got better at drawing comics, I wanted more and more involved things from myself. And so the pages were taking longer and longer to get done. And by the time I was done, they were taking me about 16 hours each. And I just felt like, that's from the time that I wrote things to lettering and penciling and inking and coloring. And I just felt like I'm never going to get done, which is funny. This is a weird thing that happens with time. Like you think, oh, I'm never going to get done. Well, I stopped it back in 10 years ago, 2010. And if I had kept going, I could have finished by now, but I got impatient. And so I stopped working on that. And occasionally, people that have followed me for a long time may be aware, occasionally I pull that one out of mothballs and play with it. I've re-lettered it a couple of times and started working on it because I get this romantic idea that I can finish it, and I always get stopped by the same thought, which is it's just going to take me forever to get it done. Because in my mind, it's 200 odd pages just for the first chapter of 3, and I just feel like, boy, that's forever. Now, my life is in a different condition now than it was when I stopped 10 years ago. My kids have grown up and moved out, and I don't have the demands on my time that I used to have. I still have a full-time job that is great, and I love having it, but it does take a tremendous amount of time of energy and energy. So I've been conditioned to not take on too much, which is why the Braincast cartoon was so fun. About 5 years ago, I worked on a Braincast cartoon, and those of you who have found Cubicle pics may recognize the style. I'll share my screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that.
Okay. I'll click on it. Okay. Here we go.
There you go. That. So you can kind of see this is the style, and Braincast looked a lot like this as well. It was something that I can do very quickly. It looks, it's nice to look at, but it doesn't take me forever to do. So anyway. Yo, it's the Ogden now. How's it going, nefarious entity? That's really funny.
Welcome.
I have some guys at work that insist on calling me, when they found my nickname was Og, they insist on calling me OG, which is really funny. Because to those guys, I am the OG. I'm Methuselah to those guys. Gandalf, like so much older than they are. So I thought I would talk a little bit, if anybody cares. I will show you my process. Does that sound good, Pete?
Absolutely. Go for it.
So I'm going to work on Cubicle Pigs number 7 tonight. So I always start with a script, and they're very simple. They just kind of tell me, here's a 4-panel script that tells me at panel 1, Eckert and Jenkins are at the office coffee pot. Eckert is standing at the wastebasket. And he says, waste bin is full again. The other one says, oh, yeah, I guess it's my turn to take it out. And so on. And I go all the way down to my joke. And that's really it. That's a little one-page script. And then I come into Photoshop and I start lettering it. I just go right into here and I just start, slapping the text down. So this is, I like this typeface. This is a typeface called Imaginary Friend that you can get at Blambot. It's one of his pro fonts, but you can see it's $25, which is really, really cheap. Nate Pico, the guy who, I don't know if you use his fonts as well, Peter, but he runs Blambot and he makes all these great fonts. Some of them are pro, some of them are free. And he's a big supporter of the independent comic scene. But so anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I know of them. I'm not great at lettering myself, so I'll let others do that.
Yeah, that's fine. I do my lettering, and I can't actually write or letter while I'm talking. So I went ahead and did this ahead of time so that it wouldn't be, wouldn't be too hard for me to complete a thought. So the lettering, magically, boom, that's done. The scripts take me generally, they're pretty simple, but they'll take me 5 minutes to get an idea down, and then I will edit that idea during the day in my head. I'll go out to lunch, back when you could actually go out to lunch before the end of the world. When I'm driving around or whatever, I'm always thinking about this joke and editing it, and I get back and edit it. So probably by the time I letter it, it's been an hour, sometimes 2 hours of changes. And then I lay the letters out when I'm ready. And I do this first before I draw any characters, because I'm kind of figuring out how much room I'm going to have left over. So I letter it first, rough lettering first. And you'll notice as I draw this over the course of the night that the characters will move around and some of the text will move around. But this gives me a good idea of kind of what I have to work with. And so the whole joke is laid out. And now it is time. And you can see this template that I have. I have over here on the right-hand side, I have my legal level. It's got my logo and my credit, and then it also contains my signature and this little copyright line at the bottom that I put on every single one of these guys. That's at the very top. Turn that on and off. And then the text layer is just all my different text laid out. And then I have a distress layer that I'll put on when it's over. I'll come back to that later on. Which kind of gives it that texture that I want. And then the other layers there is this kind of this blue layer here. I'm working on a Cintiq to my right over here. And whatever color, like I can use white, whatever color I use here, because I'm using a clipping mask right here, this blues clipping mask, whatever color I put in here is this particular color of blue. Because this is that's kind of the trademark of this style, is this blue on cyan, and I don't want to have to keep going through and picking that color even from a palette, so I don't mess with it. Just whatever color I have loaded. Like right now, I have black loaded, and it just whatever I put down, it's that. So if I turn this off for a second, you'll see that it's like, oh, that's what I'm actually drawing, but the clipping mask makes it all blue. So that's a little cheat that I do. That's when it comes time for the quote-unquote ink. So you guys will see how simple this style is. This is scandalously simple. So first, I pencil, and I do that at about. I use the same pen, but at a 50% level, because I don't want it to be too dark. If it's too dark, I feel like it's too permanent. So I draw my little dudes, and to refresh myself, I will go back to one of the other cartoons where they all appeared. And this is one with these two. Well, really, all three of these characters are in this one. So I'm just going to do myself a favor, flatten it, and grab these guys, so I can just kind of remind myself what they look like. Oop, I'm going to do that. That's another one. Here, I'll do this for myself. There we go. Bonk. So I can just draw these little dudes up there. So who we have in this? This is Hammond Eckert, which I thought was a funny name because it sounds like ham and eggs. This little dude here, the guy on the right. The guy in the middle, his name is Jenkins, and I'm thinking of calling him Sammy Jenkins. I haven't figured it out, but you might recognize that from Memento, right? Wasn't he Sam Jenkins in Memento? And then this is the boss, Francis Bacon Barnburner III, which is a great name for a evil boss. They call him Frank, which evokes, I don't know if you ever watched MASH, but it definitely evokes some memories from MASH for me. This sort of a numbskull. Did you ever watch that show?
MASH? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. You remember Frank was a real jerk, right?
Yep.
Same thing here. So basically, I need to have these guys standing at the coffee pot. So that's what I'll do right here. So while I'm doing that, I don't want to monopolize this whole conversation. Do you want to talk about what you're drawing?
Well, I mean, anybody who's been following me knows that Retro is a comic, and I'm working on the first issue. This is my own creation. It's a character I originally created when I was a teenager, and I thought of him throughout the years and developed him, and it's taken me a lifetime to get around to working on the first issue. And it's my friend Rich Fuchsia who penciled the issue, and I'm inking it as well as writing it. And I have my friend Marshall Lee who will be coloring it, and other people involved as well down the line. But I'm trying to get the inks done for this month. We'll see how well that goes. It being the 15th, already halfway through, and it's I'm crazy busy with other stuff. But got a bunch of people in the chat. I want to take a brief moment. Souls Bunny asks, do you have a specific day that you do batch writing, or do you just write as it hits you throughout the week?
No, I do them as I need, Chris.
Cool. And Crimson Alec Comics has joined. Hello, everyone.
Hello. How's it going, Al? All right. Let me see here what I'm doing. How long do how long does it usually take you to ink an entire episode? An entire issue? 22 pages?
Well, this is going to be 28 pages.
Okay.
And I'm a slow inker. And I've been inking this comic for this new YouTube series, and I'm just jumping around. Mostly I'm inking figure work. But I mean, like if I was to start to finish a regular page, it's about a day. Sometimes a little longer if it's detail heavy. Yeah. Which is why I'm not inking 9 books. there are faster inkers out there, but
yeah. But it keeps you off the streets and you're having fun. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've been mostly homebound during the pandemic.
Yeah, haven't we all, right?
Yeah.
I've been lucky. I've been able to. I still have my job, and we've been able to work from home for this entire thing, which has been really great.
Are you working at a game company right now, or?
Yeah, I work at Firaxis Games. Sid Meier's
Okay.
You might know, Civilization and XCOM and so on. Yeah, that's been my job, and they figured out very early on how they could basically have us all work from home and continue, getting our jobs done, which is really great. We didn't they'll have a massive bunch of layoffs or anything.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, very lucky. It's funny with Cubicle Pigs. It's all about bad bosses and like a horrible job, and it's funny because that's not my reality. I actually have a good job with good bosses, but I've had some bad bosses in my life, and so it's good to have something to draw on.
Yeah, I'm sure anybody who's had a job most likely had a bad boss at some point.
Yeah, it's very easy to be one. Very, very easy to be a bad boss. It's very hard to be a good boss. Usually don't get training. Usually just wind up accidentally in charge, and then you just assume that that's how it's going to be. So I use that guide just to kind of give myself some sort of rough idea about how much, try to keep these guys about the same height, which is important to me. Even though it's just such a silly little, very simple cartoon, but I probably don't even need to pencil at this point, but it's a long, long habit. I pencil before I ink with this thing.
All right. However it gets done.
Right. Right. Yep. That's kind of the whole point, right? Just keep the wheels moving. So this was after almost a decade of messing around with. The last decade has been me trying to figure out how to make comics better. And it's been Moontown, and I did a project called Taraniki about a weird robot alien thing, which is still amusing to me. And I was messing with a graphic novel about this Inuit kid who went off to save his village from some monsters. It was a very Lord of the Rings, sort of meets Inuit sort of a story. And finally realized my dream of getting a syndicated comic when I got Magnificatz picked up by Go Comics, which is great. It was a dream of mine. I worked for decades to try to get syndicated, and I did. And I've enjoyed Magnificatz, but it just hasn't. It has never taken off the way that I expected that it might. And I'm not sure I enjoy it. I think the audience that's found it enjoys it, but it has failed to set the world on fire yet. And I've been doing it since 2013. And so when the pandemic hit, I felt like, well, I want to try some other things. So I'm kind of in the throwing spaghetti at the wall portion of my life right now. I'm just making, I don't know if you saw, I did Dani and Dax a couple of weeks ago. Last month, I guess I spent the month. I drew 30, one for every day. I just thought, what would it be like if I'm a huge Calvin and Hobbes fan? And I felt like, what if there was like a little girl version of Calvin and Hobbes? And so I just kind of gave it my best shot. And also to see what would it be like to draw a comic every day, which I usually don't. Usually I draw a comic and then I get to wait a couple of days. I do another one and wait a couple of days. And the guys that are in the paper that do this every day, I don't know how they do it because it's daunting. But it was good for me because it was like it taught me what that's like to do that every day. And I thought it was okay. I thought the result was okay. Didn't love it. And I've always had this idea, this Cubicle Pigs idea in the back of my head that I wanted to try. So this is now me, I guess the third thing over the course of the pandemic that I've tried. First was Taraniki. And that was I was going to tell a story about this little alien robot guy who went off and had these cute little adventures. And I thought it would be the perfect cozy little adventure story for all of us that were locked up in the house and just kind of wanted to get out. But it just kept getting darker and darker until it looked like The Walking Dead. It was just not Not really what I had in mind. I think by the time I was drawing it for real. So I do take advantage of some of this stuff. It's such a very simple cartoon that I will just copy and paste stuff, move things around, and rather than drawing from scratch, I can just real quick make a couple of changes, and I'll have my drawing ready to go. I don't know if that's cheating or just being smart, but after years in the game industry, I don't mess around. If I got to get something done and if I have a way to get there quicker, I'll do it, and I don't really care. So anyway, this is my shortcut. There we go. It's almost a brand new drawing. And then I know that there's a stage after this, my cleanups, where I will come in and I'll end up cleaning and making these things a little bit more special as they go. But I'm having trouble with this particular character. I've only been doing this is like the 7th one I've done, and I have trouble getting him. It's always hard getting a new character. And for me, I feel like he has a flat head with this weird shield shape. This is where I want Barn Burner's head to be, because Jenkins' head is perfectly round, and Eckert's head is this sort of squashed rectangle. You notice that both his head and his nose follow that, and same thing. Jenkins has the round head and the round snout. And then you come over to this guy, to Barn Burner, and I just wanted him to be a little bit more complicated. Because going back to MASH again, very easy to take a character like Frank Burns and just turn him into a ridiculous caricature that no one likes. And to a degree, he was the villain of the show, if such a thing was appropriate. And this is, in a way, the bad boss is the villain or the antagonist here. I want him to seem a little bit more complicated, and so that goes also with the way he looks, not just the way that I write him, but the way that I draw him. I just want to make sure that I have enough going on in him that he's not just a simple little, easily dismissed character.
Right.
So, but he's, like any bad boss, he just shows up out of nowhere, and he has advice, whether you're asking for it or not. He's ready to tell you, in this case, complain. If the dumpster's full, just stop throwing things away. Actually, they're British, so it'd be, complain. The dumpster's full, just stop throwing things away. Where to put it, though? The dumpster's been overflowing for weeks. I don't know. There's something about that, the old British Office show that just cracked me up. And I have a feeling that, just like my Calvin and Hobbes itch, if I don't scratch my Ricky Gervais Office itch, I'm never going to leave it alone. So that's kind of, I have a feeling that's what's happening here.
It's funny. I like Ricky Gervais, and I never saw his version of The Office.
Really?
I should watch it.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if you like him, you will find it interesting and cringe-inducing, and all of the things that we both love and hate about him. He really does he does not know when to stop. That is one thing about him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, geez. Imagine knowing a person like that. I think I want all three of these characters in this shot. I usually try to avoid it because it just complicates the layout, but I think I want all three of them in this shot. So I'm going to try to do that. But yeah, it's the first season of The Office, of the American Office, hewed very, very closely to the British version. It was almost episode for episode. Very interesting how they did that. And then Ricky Gervais, Whackbacker said, "Yeah, there you go. Boy, you should be writing this thing." That's what I think. But yeah, it's very, very funny. It is painful to watch. If you've ever been a boss and you don't see yourself in him, I think you're not looking closely enough. And of course, you'll recognize every bad boss you've ever had, but he's just a study a psychological study of just, it's all id with this guy, right? He's just out in front, and you know exactly who this guy is. There's no hiding. It's crazy. So in a way, I want that here. I want the personalities of these characters to be just out up front. This is who they are. That's where the humor comes from. So you kind of have to know who they are. I think in my script I had him walking away here. I think. Yep, that's exactly right. So this guy's got to be walking off. So this is great. Another cheat. I just grabbed this whole bunch of guys and whoop, just move them down here. Move Barn Burner over here. Move these guys over here so they can be reacting to him. And he, in true bad manager style, has solved the problem and is moving on before the problems really become evident. Right? As long as you move on before the problem, the repercussions begin to show, then you are a genius and you did it. Solve the problem. So again, just going for simple, like he's walking, so I'm just going with these really ridiculous, simple noodle shapes. It just gives him sort of a walking, there's a suggestion that someone's walking or running here. And then I got to deal with this problem where I'm just going to flop his head. Because he's watching. There's one thing I learned from Magnificatz. I would try these shortcuts on Magnificatz, but Sam was completely symmetrical, but Nina had this lightning stripe down her head. So if I flipped her, she looked wrong. So I learned very quickly. Yeah. I don't want to have that problem now. When I flip these guys, it's just they look this way and then they look that way, and it's fine. And I don't have to deal with it. So really, they're just both looking at the boss as he's leaving. And then now these guys are going to be on their own. So they just probably going to have this guy walking away with the trash can now because he's making a joke and leaving. My wife pointed out that usually my characters are walking away as they say things. And I guess it's a habit, but it's my habit and I like my habit. So keep doing it.
I usually say things when I'm walking away.
Right. Usually it's someone dropping a bomb and then leaving. You know?
Yeah.
Usually something horrible is So anyway, that's what the strip is kind of going to look like. So my pencils are, for all intents and purposes, done. And now it's a matter of just going in. I move it to the top so that when I'm drawing underneath it, I can still see what I meant to do. So I will go to the first layer here, which is my ink layer. And I'm drawing in Photoshop with my lasso tool. I can just make a shape and then fill it, and bang, I get that exact shape. So in this case, their legs on these guys, Mr. Barnburner is like completely filled in with this Braincast blue. But these guys, it's a little bit lesser. Their shirts are white. It's a little bit of a Dilbert thing going on there, I suppose, especially if you look at this guy. And then I'm now using a brush. It's got a little bit of a tooth to it, so it gives me some interesting texture that I like. And I shrink it down real small. So for my details, like glasses and things like that, I can just draw like this. And their snout is just a perfect line, and their nostrils are these big, fat blots. And his glasses, your glasses are supposed to go over your ears, but not in his case. He doesn't get that. Below his ears, magically up with tape or something. I don't know. And so that's it. So then the details that you get, the top of his collar, the separation between his head and his body, the place where his shirt is rolled up, this place where the shirt comes against the rest of his shirt, or over here. Because I'll lose that once I go to draw him in the white, which is now this layer. Same thing. I'm just using my lasso tool to make a little shape. I don't know if you can see my cursor.
Yeah.
I feel like Bob Ross. Oh, happy accident here. So there, I just fill in it. And then when I hide the pencil, what you get is this nice clean, right? It's the lines are, I needed to have a line to break this area here, or else it would just look like his hand ran into his body. And same thing here, and same thing up there. It's just a stylistic choice I've made. But anyway, that's kind of how I do it. And then on things like, I'm a really big Mike Mignola fan, Hellboy, fan, and he uses black spotting so well. I've tried to, on things like this comic, just try to use a lot of positive, negative space. So I'm just coming in here and laying in all the stuff that I just laid out in the pencil. I'm just coming in here and popping these as bits of positive color.
Right.
And then I can put my coffee in here like this. And then I come in here for the pot, and now you magically have a coffee pot. Just turn off the pencils here, where it's just made of positive and negative shapes. So that's the challenge that I give myself. I also, this is a very Mike Mignola kind of thing that I will do occasionally. Come in here and then just reverse out the line between two layers. So that cup that's behind the other cup is revealed by this weird little overlapping cutout that I made. And then same thing, I come in here and do the straws. All this stuff is just to add a little bit more detail in the shot, so that your eye has enough. Like a simple drawing still has to have enough for your eye to chew on. At least that's what I think. Yeah, now I'm just, I don't know if you want me to keep talking about this, Pete, but I'm just working the rest of the way down through this.
No, I love it.
Cool. And sometimes I'll use my my eraser tool. In this case, I can. It's a little bit floppy. I don't know why Photoshop's brushes sometimes, even the Kyle's brushes, are a little soft for my taste, but I'll just use this. And you notice I'm not using my shift constrain because it makes it too clean, and I don't. The whole point of this thing is to not be clean. Oh, the wrong lasso going. There we go. I don't want this to be too clean and too sterile. Do you prefer Illustrator, Photoshop, Nefarious, NYC? Do you prefer Illustrator, Photoshop to other digital art programs, and if so, why? That is a good question. On Magnificatz, I used Clip Studio, or what used to be called Manga Studio, and weird process because of I'm way older probably than most of you guys watching this. I started on pencil and paper and only later on made the transition to digital. So even 10 years ago when I was working on Moontown, I would pencil on paper, I would scan the pencils into the computer, make adjustments in Photoshop, print that out, put that on a light table and do my inking over top of that, and then rescan that into Photoshop, and from there do all my lettering and my coloring and stuff like that. So because that's ingrained in me for years as my process, on Magnificatz, I penciled, quote unquote, penciled digitally on my Cintiq in Photoshop, and then I lettered in Photoshop, and then I baked all that down to a separate file, brought that into Clip Studio just to do the inking, because the brush engine in Clip Studio is so nice. You get these really nice lines. Maybe instead of talking about it, I should take you in there and show you. I'll do that if I can get this thing to launch up. Hang on, it's launching. But yeah, the engine is just so nice. I'll just do this real quick and see here. So I like this mapping pen. Just look at this. Look what it can do.
Yeah.
It's like a brush. You just this really great expression. And then they have some really like this little gritty brush that leaves little tooth and stuff like that if you want to. This one, some Kirby dots, a little inking brush. And look at that. It just looks. I know that Kyle's brushes do a lot of this kind of stuff in Photoshop, but for me, when I want to do really tight inking digitally, I go right here to Studio and just try to. I don't know. I do this way too fast, but you see me get the idea. Yeah, that's perfect. Anyway, you get the idea. That's the idea.
Yeah.
So I pencil in Photoshop, then I would ink in. I would do my lettering in Photoshop, then I would bake that down, bring it into Clip Studio, ink over top of that, bring that back in, steal only the ink layer, put that back into my original, and then make whatever edits I want to make to my inking, and then do my coloring and final compositing and everything right out of Photoshop. So most of the time, and it's because I've been using Photoshop for 1,000 years, I'm just way more comfortable with Photoshop than I am with Clip Studio. Clip Studio, for whatever reason, eats my text. If I do text in Photoshop and then bring it into Clip Studio, when I export it back out into Photoshop, the text is borked. So I can't do it all in one, unfortunately. I'd love to, but I just can't do it. But anyway, on Braincast and on Cubicle Pick, I haven't needed to do that because I don't need these clean ink lines. I don't have any need for it. I'm happy to be sloppy and draw with my lasso tool, and it doesn't matter to me because for me, that's part of the charm. It's just weird. I know this is wacky looking, but just kind of doing this. Yeah, it's part of it. I try not to do really straight lines everywhere. Sometimes I work them in like I'm working these in right now. And then I'll come and just add this little jog out to the side so it's not so clean. I don't know. I don't know what that's a reaction to, but it does seem to be gaining some traction, which is really interesting. You do this stuff for the art of it, but you also have to kind of keep an eye. If you're like me and you want this to succeed, you kind of have to look at the business end of things. And the business end means watching how many people are liking your work, right? It's kind of like playing music live. I've always said that drawing these cartoons and putting them up online is like playing music live. And how do you judge if your song was a success? You get applause. You get small applause, it was a small success. You get big applause, it was a big success. And an audience will train an artist to do what they want by that kind of feedback. They really like that fast dance number, so let's do another one of those, and don't do the slow country and western version because they didn't respond to that one very well. So same thing here. Some jokes they find funny, some jokes they don't find funny. And although you're not doing it 100% for the audience, you're doing it enough for the audience that you should pay attention, unless you don't care and you don't want any audience at all. And I know some guys are that way. I want a nice big audience so that I can be sure that all these jokes are landing with the biggest audience possible, right? That the time that I'm spending away from my family, from my working out or sleeping or whatever else I could be doing is well spent because it is entertaining the biggest, largest number of people that I can find. And I think for me, that's what's been driving me. And I think a lot of my fellow creatives either don't understand that or they understand it too well and they they give me crap about it, but that's kind of what drives me. I want to make sure that I'm not just wasting my time with this stuff. So I do pay attention to. I do to a degree judge whether something is successful by how many people have liked it that day, and that may be a dangerous way to look at it. But I also feel like I'm just as happy to go for a run. For me, like, well, if this whole thing collapsed and no one liked my work, I'd go running every day and I'd be fine with it. So that's another way of looking at things.
Well, it's definitely like you're doing a daily strip, and it's different than doing a bigger story,
Right.
where it's harder to judge. Like, if you were doing an ongoing story on, like you posted the strips on Instagram, if you were doing an ongoing strip on story on Instagram and posting, a couple of panels each day, and it'll be harder to judge exactly, what the audience is reacting to.
Oh yeah, it's impossible. So in that case, what you have to do is you have to wait until the entire cycle is up, the entire episode. So with Moontown, I'll get to the end of my 12 pages because Moontown, the first sort of episode that I finished was 3 mini episodes of 12 pages each. So by the time it's done, you have 36 pages, and that felt like it's a pretty good statement. Like I was releasing the pages as I did them, and I felt like everybody could see what I was doing and judge for themselves whether they liked it or whether they didn't like it. But they couldn't. I couldn't pay attention on a daily basis. It would drive you insane to do that. So I had to just wait until I finished 12 pages and then kind of see how that went. And then that informs me a little bit. Okay, they don't like the Vin Sinclair character, because back in those days I was putting it on a blog and I was getting comments from people who were complaining about this character, complaining about that character. And although you don't want, who was it that said the crowd is a lousy editor? Like, you don't want to completely follow what the crowd says, but if enough people are saying, boy, I really don't like that one character, it's interesting to kind of dig down why. For instance, back on MASH, people didn't like Frank Burns because he was an ass, but he was intended to be an ass. So it would have been a mistake to take him out of the show just because people didn't like him. That was as intended. But sometimes you get a character that people just find abrasive, and that's the kind of thing you'd want to watch out for. You're getting a lot of people saying, boy, that one character is really I just don't want to have to be around that character. That's the thing. You provide this stuff. People need to want to be around your characters. And if they don't want to, they're not going to read it. So I think for me, that's the little line I try to find. Like, do you want to spend time with these people? Try to do that. I do. I want to spend time with them. Also, if I don't want to spend time with them, nobody's going to want to. It needs to be a feeling somewhere. Are you writing yours as well?
Yeah.
You're writing and inking it.
Right. Yeah. It's like I've been in the comic industry since 1991, and I've mostly been an inker, and like many other inkers, I'm trying to evolve. And like doing my own comic is something I always wanted to do. And I thought, what if I approach this as an opportunity for me to ink a lot of my friends? And so it's like this will be the first book, but I got a whole bunch in mind, and I got other artists that want to be involved. So I'll be inking a bunch of people. And so I get to continue my craft and actually put out my own books at the same time.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
It also prevents you from having to do everything yourself, which is just
yeah. I mean, with retro, my friend Rich has gotten into painting. So actually, I will be the artist as of issue 2 on.
Wow.
But I can't. But it's like I'm not looking at to do a monthly book, and I do have a bunch of other books I want to do. So we'll see what the schedule is. It'll be like a lot of independent comics. It'll come out when it's done.
Right. Sorry, what was that noise again? Yeah. That's great. Yeah, comes on, comes out. Yep.
Yeah.
And it stops when it stops.
So we got some comments from Stinch. Steve Ogden, you got some fine puns out there, especially the firing and pizza strip.
Yeah, he's talking about the last couple of strips I put out on Cubicle. Thank you. I hope that you like them. They are very, very silly. He's talking about this one right here, this late pizza. I don't even remember the pun being there. I don't know. He's just yelling at him. He's going to teach him to be late. But yeah, this is the one he's talking about. I would have been happy with the discount. You're welcome.
I love seeing your process because I know the end result, and it looks so clean and I mean, I know what goes into making comics and art, and still seeing you just like do these little doodles and then start to finishing them with white and the blue and then cleaning up. Yeah. And how perfect it looks after it's all done.
It's really funny, awesome. Isn't it? The little tricks that go into it, and then it's done. Turn this thing off again. So I occasionally have to turn this off just to kind of make sure I'm. It looks like I messed up something. It's like instead of copy and paste,
right?
I actually deleted my little dude over there. There he is. What happens when I'm talking and drawing? Old Bunny had said something and I missed it. Let me see. What did he say? Is there a log in this thing? Old Bunny's actually a buddy of mine. Let's see. Do you find you get different results per platform? Do you ever target your content? You know what, Chris? I do not target for the different platforms. The only concession I've made to the platforms is the format of the cartoon. I do single panels followed up by an all-in-one on Instagram. So 4 panels plus a big 4x. But everywhere else on Facebook and on Webtoons and Tapastic and on my Patreon page, I just do the 4 all-in-one 4 piece because I do the one comic and I put it up everywhere regardless of forum. I can't imagine trying to make new jokes for all the different forums. I think it would kill me. Can't do it.
I guess there's sort of a like maybe people on Facebook are older generation, maybe people on Instagram are younger. It's like there's statistics, but things are always changing, so it's impossible, I guess, to cater to a specific site.
Yeah, and the one thing I have discovered is that the people on Reddit, for whatever reason, do not like my stuff. I don't know why. It gets voted into oblivion, downvoted into oblivion, and I don't know why. So I usually just don't mess around with Reddit a whole lot. There's a comics sub and there is a webcomics sub, and occasionally I'll put stuff up there, but I'm lucky if I get 7 upvotes, and I just feel like I don't. That audience is telling me that they don't care for that, and that's cool. That's a different audience, and to Chris's point, I'm just not gonna. I could make a comic, I suppose, that was intended to be popular on Reddit, but I don't think I would want to read it. So I just let it roll. Let it roll.
Yeah, I haven't messed with Reddit that much.
Yeah.
I get lost.
It's cool, but yeah, it's you could get lost in there, and it's cute because like any community, they have their preferences, they have the things that they really like, and the things they really don't like, and they will let you know by either their silence or their cheers. Souls Bunny says, "Have I considered a Sunday strip type comic for any of them?" Yes. When I was drawing Dani and Dax, the one comic I didn't do, and I think I might not do, but I considered doing a big full color Sunday strip, very Calvin and Hobbes esque, where uh, Dani is talking to the drag. So Dani and Dax, for those of you who don't know, is a little girl and a dragon that may or may not be imaginary. Um, and at one point in the series, I had her writing a comic about them. This was a chance to see that comic, and it was basically going to be her talking about going to this great event, and it was going to be drawn in a very serious comic style, where she was going to look like a badass, sword wielding warrior princess, and the dragon was going to be this big, powerful dragon that she's riding on top of, and she's like, "We're going to miss the party if you don't get there. Can't you fly?" And he had these tiny little wings. In the comic, of course, be this big, powerful dragon with these tiny little wings. And it turns out it was her birthday party, and that's what she was afraid to be late. And he said, "Are you kidding? No one's going to care when you come riding in on this great dragon." And it's her riding in. Like the last panel is the reality shot of this little girl on top of this tiny dragon that's smaller than a dog. And I just thought it would be cute, and it would be fun to draw all that. And then I thought about drawing all of it, and I thought, I can't do it. I can't. We're going to be big, full color, all the stop, And I was just like, nope. No, we're done. We're done with that. So now I'm drawing pigs. Those bunny. This is what I'm doing with all my time and energy, drawing pigs.
Well, you're trying to find what your audience loves.
Yeah. Or even, you're lucky if you find what you love. And for me, I love everything. Like, I have so many interests that it's easy for me. It's really funny. People say, where do you get your ideas from? I have too many ideas. I can come up with 10 ideas by breakfast, and I will come up halfway through drawing something. We'll come up with an idea that I like better than the thing I'm drawing, and I have to be disciplined to not let myself get pulled off track. But if Magnificatz doesn't work out, I'm happy to draw Dani and Dax. And if that doesn't work out, I'm happy to draw Cubicle Pigs. And if that doesn't work out, I'm happy to draw Taraniki. And if that doesn't work out, there's an infinite pile of ideas lined up behind there, waiting for their turn. So, I'm at the point now where, dude, it would be awesome. What would be awesome? That thing I described. Souls Bunny says, dude,
I think awesome. The Sunday strip.
Yeah, I think he wants to see it now. Well, there we go. Yeah. I got one guy who wants to see it for sure. It would be awesome. It would be. It would be a lot of fun. This guy, because I violated my rule and made him more complicated, he's harder for me to get down. But none of these guys are too bad. They're just such simple little things, really. And again, this is that Mike Mignola stuff, positive and negative on his hat. It's completely black and then completely white, just because it's fun to have that contrast. But I hide the pencil. See, I've got some problems with the way I've got this coming through here now. I don't much care for that. But it's just easy to kind of go through and tag a little bit. And then here's that thing I was telling you before. I could let this go because it kind of works the way the way Jenkins' tie is kind of showing us where his arm is. But I want it represented just a little bit better than that. Oh, I'm on the wrong. See, on the wrong layer. I come in here and do it over here now. And I feel like that makes it feel better to me. And then I can do his rolled up sleeves. I think I do that because I roll my sleeves up. You ever notice my guys with their ties and their button down shirts on? They always have their sleeves rolled up. I always do that.
I've done that a lot.
Yeah, it's a thing. Evidently, it's very popular in engineer circles back in the '90s, which is why I think Dilbert had that too, along with the tie. I never got the thing with the tie that was sticking up on him, but that was one of the things he was doing. Whatever.
Guess you didn't want to get it dirty.
Did not. So there's 2 panels. How much time do we have left, Pete?
Yeah. As much as you want. At least another 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay. So the next thing I do my word balloons, and really they're just raggedy. It's me just taking this lasso tool and drawing a shape until I kind of like the size of it, and then just filling it. Oof, there we go. That's as pro as it gets. And then again, it's that same brush I've been using the whole time. Has a little bit of tooth to it, which if you zoom in, you can see it's a little character. It's kind of nice. By the time it gets shrunk down to Instagram, probably nobody sees it, but I know that it's there. And then this is a matter of pulling this down. I told you guys that when it came time to finish the lettering, I'd be moving things around, and it's true. But it's kind of like that lettering is up there just to kind of give me an idea of where it's going to be. And then when it comes time for me to commit, I really have strong opinions about where the word balloons should go and how they should read. That is one thing. Nate Picos, that I was telling you about before, that runs Blambot, he has a whole series of how-to docs that I think is the sum total of my lettering knowledge at this point. It really has taught me an awful lot about what to do. I mean, everything from, how to not use the crossbar I. There are 2 I's in these fonts. So if you use that one, you get this funky looking IF. If you use this regular one, it's that. So the one with the crossbars is only for using for the personal pronoun I. I want to eat that donut. You'd use the I with the crossbar. Virtually anything else, you use the ones without the crossbars. And then it's just things about how to, whether things read from right to left and top to bottom, and how to put things. And there are dozens of rules that now are just part of the way I do this stuff. I don't even think about it anymore. But Nate has gone to the trouble of writing it all down for everybody. So if you know it, it's a good review, and if you don't know it, it's worth knowing. Did I say that right? If you do know it, it's a good review. If you don't know it, it's worth knowing. But it would be, let me see, Nate P. Is it E? I can never get this right. So, better letterer. Of course, i.e. lettering tips. Better letterer. That's what you want to do. And you can look at it. There we go. There's that crossbar I we were just talking about. Very first one. But he talks about kerning. And he talks about how to do sound effects. And you don't want the balloon tails to cross. This is something people do all the time. They put the characters on the wrong side, and then they have to let the tails cross. There are other ways of handling this, and he goes through all the different ways of handling it.
There's so many things with lettering that irritate me with comic books. It's like so many use different fonts, color behind the letters. It's like anything to make it harder to read.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to make it harder to read. Right? Anything you do harder to read is giving somebody a chance to stop reading your work. You just don't want to do that. So here we are on the cleanups, and I'm doing basically working backward now to try to get this thing done before we're finished for the night. It'll be fun to get this completely finished before we're done. So that I'm not just completely lazy about it, I am changing little things here and there because if I just copy and pasted the 4 drawings and the 4 panels, I'd feel like I wasn't really doing anything worthwhile. I don't know why I'm this way, but I am this way. And I'll come in here and pull these guys out. That's what the pencil lines are there for, to make it so that when it comes time for me to just come in here with that lasso tool, I don't even have to think anymore. I can actually talk to you guys and do this at the same time because there's no thinking anymore. This is just execution. I always said to the guys I worked with that I would go out to lunch and think about something that I had to deal with on the job. And I'd come back to the office and plow through it because I'd thought through it all, and now it was just time for execution. And I prefer that. I like to think about all this stuff ahead of time and then just be able to blast through it later on. Working with this lasso tool is a very fast way for me. I know a lot of people probably just come in here and do this with their brush, but I've never enjoyed doing that. I don't know why. I like doing it this way. This particular style. So here's one thing I've forgotten on the little dude here. Again, another complicating issue. It's a little thing, but you need it. So you come in here maybe with the eraser and knock these lapels in. It's important. Again, they're reversed out. Like that.
Yep. There you go.
And then I have to come in here and clean up their little bits of white from where I sloppily threw them down behind. So there you go. There's Barn Burner walking away. And then I can go back and catch my boys from panel 2, move all of this down wholesale, this entire area, because when I drew the pencils, the only thing I changed was Eckert's head flopped left to right. So I know this is going to read as its own illustration now because the boss is in a different place. He's doing something different, and Eckert is looking in the opposite direction. They are now both watching the boss, and so it keeps them alive rather than the other way. And I could just come in here and erase again with my eraser tool, just erase this line because I don't need that. And I could go up and steal the whites, I suppose, from up here, but his head is backwards, and I don't love that idea. We'll see what happens. Sometimes this is pretty seamless, and sometimes I've changed so much on one of my characters that not really saving me any time. But, let's see. I don't know if this makes any sense to you, Peter, but it's all the magic. So his head, it's really funny because if you didn't know his head was backwards, let me turn off this pencil layer. If you didn't know his head was backwards, you'd be like, yeah, that's about right. But I'm going to flop it anyway, left to right. And, oops, what did I do wrong? Oh, here we go. Bonk. And it's a little thing, but having his ears point away from his glasses, for me, suggests the back of his head. It's just such a simple character that it's hard to tell. And I don't know anybody that's working in Photoshop all the time like I am if you're having this problem, but there's something wrong with Photoshop. Once I've had it open for a while, it starts doing this random thing where it'll just draw a shape for no reason. It'll draw a triangle. It'll go, it'll just do that out of nowhere. And I'm like, I did not want you to do that. So then I have to hit Control D and then escape, and then it's okay for another little while, and then it'll mess up again later. It's kind of weird. I don't know why it's doing it. Very confusing. Have you ever had that happen? You ever used Photoshop like that?
I'm mostly traditional tools. I do mess around in art programs occasionally, but I never touched Photoshop. That's one program I
Interesting.
haven't played with. Um, a lot of things that I use like an art program for. I use a program called Meaty Bang
Huh.
Pro Paint, um, Paint Pro. Um, it's I think it's a Chinese or Japanese program originally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I have Manga Studio, whatever, Clip Paint Studio it's called nowadays.
Yeah.
Um, um, I have that, and I've messed around with that. I think it's just easier for me to open the MIDI Bang,
Uh huh.
so it's like it's like too long to open up and jump onto something, and
Right.
then close it.
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Let's see. Almost done, isn't it? All right. So then boss goes away, and we are left just with our two monkeys at the end here.
Monkeys. You switched it up.
Cubicle monkeys. There you go. Why not? So there are some very, very dark ideas behind cubicle pigs. Eventually, well, the idea originally was to have them working for this factory where it's a metaphor for layoffs. They are actually selling each other for food. They're actually the pigs
uh,
are filling orders of this substance. Think about Soylent Green, right? They don't know what they're selling. They're selling something.
yeah.
Well, it's sausage. It's sausage. It's them. And so
All right.
the hogs that are in charge of the factory have got the pigs that work in the office selling each other, and they don't know it yet. So you hit a button, and the guy across the hall from you falls through a thing in the floor, and you're like, "What the hell happened?" Well, now he's been sold for a meal. So, like I say, it gets very dark. It gets exceedingly dark, and oh boy, this is
So
locked up.
they think he got a promotion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what do you think happened to that guy? I guess he got a promotion. So Photoshop crashed on me. We'll see how much of that it was able to rescue. It's that weird thing when it
Uh,
comes, it starts drawing weird things on the screen and then it just dies. I don't know why it does that. But those of you who may want to follow me, I have a Facebook page, Steve Ogden Art. I have this is us right now. Those of you who may want to follow me, I have Instagram, again, Steve Ogden Art, and my Patreon. What do you suppose? Steve Ogden Art. I'm also on webcomics and Tapastic, but I don't know anybody who.
what is some of your Patreon perks? Or do you have anything
Yeah,
to give
it's a
to your
good question.
patrons?
I started it because a couple of my fans came to me asking for it. So I never really took it that seriously. I was just like, I'll put it up. It's a tip jar. If anybody wants to give me money, they
Yeah.
can give me money. As it went, I decided that I would do some more special things. And so I'm somebody who releases books on a pretty regular basis. The pandemic has kind of put the kibosh on that this particular time. But normally I release one or two books a year. And so one of the perks is that you get, anytime I release a book, you get a free PDF of it. At the next level, you actually get a signed paper version of it because I release the old-fashioned paper books. One of the perks, you get like a free print. You just tell me which of my many comics you want, and I'll send you an actual signed print. 8.5 by 11. So there's all those kind of perks, but I'm not one of those guys that sits down for 5 days a month and draws a bunch of new stuff just for the patrons, because that wasn't the original plan. The original plan was it's a tip
Right.
job,
Yeah.
and then I felt guilty about not providing enough value, so I added those perks. But it's always humbling that people want to support my work. It's really sweet.
No, absolutely. It's like I have a Patreon, and I guess for most of the time I've had it, it is exactly that. It's a tip jar. But I've tried different things. But I'm going to start working on a comic. It won't be fast over there. It will just be sort of me creating a comic and the steps I go through and all that.
Yeah.
So a more step-by-step thing they can follow if they care. But also I offer a higher level where they can hang out in a stream with me and talk about whatever. If they want me to look at artwork, or if they want me to critique their comic book or whatever.
Yeah,
I'll leave it up to them.
Nice. That way, in some ways, they're in charge of the perk.
Yeah.
All right. That Photoshop crashed. It very unkindly took my work so far with it, but I was able to get it back mostly. So no big deal. I had done the original drawing of this. I had forgotten to have Eckert looking back at Jenkins, which he should be. So sometimes crashes are a blessing.
Does that have anything to do with, since it's a subscription now?
No, I don't really know why it's doing it. It started when I upgraded to one of the upgrades, like 2020 or whatever. It started being a crack baby, and I really don't know why. Photoshop. I've been using Photoshop since 1994, 95, something like this. Like, the reason I use it is because I've been using it so much that it's just all second nature now. I use it all day long at work, and I use it here. This is my personal copy here at my personal studio, but I have the studio version on my other studio downstairs because I'm working from home right now. So my other studio it's just for that job. But for some reason, when I upgraded to 2020, it just started doing really weird things. First of all, I had to upgrade something to do with the video card. That was a problem. And then I had to go through and get a bunch of different drivers. And it was just all these little things that it needed help with. And now it just occasionally does what you just saw it do tonight. It just goes, I can't work under these conditions. And then just crashes. Starts acting weird and then just crashes. I'm almost done with this one, aren't I?
Yeah.
Here. So you can see that partly what I'm looking for are some interesting shapes on those balloons. I don't want squares. I don't want perfect circles. And the way that I letter, anyway, I don't know if you can see, but the way I letter does not really fit into a good ellipse anyway. It's just like, this is not. I try to keep it in that shape, but I really would rather have it more square. Like this one over here, you can see that it's a little bit more squared off, and there's just no way to get an ellipse that would conform to that shape. So when I letter for real, like when I'm doing my professional lettering, I will use an ellipse tool like this, and then I will squish it by grabbing this stuff and kind of popping it out a little bit. Makes it makes it like a little shape now instead of an ellipse. But that gives it that, it's almost, right, there's a little bit of a rectangle in that now. And sometimes I'll go even further with it. Like this here. You can just pull it all the way out and just really start getting those corners. If I pull all the way out, you can see where this is heading. Almost like an old-fashioned TV. But I don't want that. That's too far. But this is a shape. This is the shape that I generally use when I do, my very serious lettering. But I don't need that here. This is everything about Cubicle Pigs is like, what's the fastest way to get there? What's the most energy you can get into a line? That's kind of where that's the impetus for all this.
It has a very, I don't know, like one color newspaper strip feel to it. Like I've seen it before, but it's still new and fresh.
Weird, isn't it? So then the last thing I do, this is this other layer is like it's a half layer. I have it on 50%. It's the same. I have the same clipping layer going on with the same color, but when I come in here with my brush set all the way, with black set all the way to 100%, I get, the shade, which is kind of nice. The way I can just kind of go through, go through here and just kind of paint shadows under each one of these guys, and just kind of get something interesting. Again, you can see the tooth on that brush is really giving me a lot of interest at the edges.
Yep.
And then I will finish this, this. I got to go back and get Mr. Barnburner. I think I missed him on the last one. He's all the way over here. He's leaving the. There we go. So sometimes I actually think that's a little bit too much, so I'll knock it to 45% and 40%. 40% looks a little bit better to me. And then the last thing I do, there's two layers of interest that I have. One in the background layer, I have this sort of watercolor paint. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got it's got some texture to it. And then in front of everything, I have this distress layer here. And what that does is this. All my blues now have that little grit going. And so the watercolor in the background, in the grit and the foreground all work together to give this a lot of texture and a lot of interest that it kind of doesn't have when I take that all away. So again, let me zoom right in on this and show you what this is like. First, I'll turn off the watercolor. See a little change back there? It's hard to see it. I'll turn off the distress layer. You really see that difference there. So that's gone. And then if I turn off this watercolor layer, you may be seeing that, and you may not.
Yeah.
Boost the contrast on this for and see. Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. That's one thing. If I do this, it'll really show you what the difference is. Nope. So we're not going to play ball, is it? Well, anyway, that texture right there is just a bunch of watercolor nonsense. You really see it down here in the lower right-hand corner.
Yeah.
That's really what we have. So if I turn it off, you look particularly under his feet, and I turn it off, you'll see it show up there. And then the distress layer that I put on here really does just help give everything a little layer of interest. I think that is the entire comic completed in just about an hour.
There you go.
That's what I go for. And then because I'm nuts,
that's amazing.
I want to move this because it's not quite where I want it to be, right? And this one's not quite. Like I just gotta. But that's basically it. That's an evening's comic done. So let me see where you are. I haven't been keeping up with you. Let me see where you are now.
Oh, I didn't do that much. I was actually watching a lot of what you were doing. That's,
So
that's fine. It happens sometimes.
yeah,
So we had a couple of other comments I just want to briefly touch on. Um,
yeah,
so can you talk a little bit about how you choose a font for a particular IP?
right. So again, this goes back to all the sort of work I've been doing with Nate Picos and his lettering and his fonts that he has available. I use this font that is on Cubicle Pigs. This is called Imaginary Friend, and I think it looks a lot like Calvin and Hobbes, right? Doesn't that kind of look a little bit like Calvin and Hobbes? I believe
Yep.
that this is the font also that Scotty Young and his group used for Fairyland, right? It's just a really nice font with a lot of character, and it's also compressed this way, so you can get a lot of writing in the same spot. I also use. Let me see if I can actually use his. This will be fun if I can actually find these things. Ink Slinger. This is one of my favorite. This is really one of my favorites. Oh, look at this. This is a beautiful, beautiful font. This is one that I was using on. If you saw Pandora's Bones, which I was doing in March of this year, very serious, very Mike Mignola-esque comic about a girl who has to go around the world and try to put the monsters back into Pandora's box, which I thought was really fun. Then I was sitting down to draw it, and it was never going to get done. But this is the font that I used because it just had the right feel to it. So, Chris, sometimes it's just the feel. Like, how does it feel? How does it look with the different style that I'm drawing? Imaginary Friend I used for Magnificatz, and I also used for Braincast and Cubicle Pigs. But Inkslinger I used here, and I also used on the latest version of Moontown. But Nate also has a very similar one called, I think it's called Heavy Metal, Mettle. And it's related to that last one I just showed you. But if you look at this, look at the character that it has. There's no straight lines. They all have little bits and bobs that flop around, and so it really works well with the work that I was doing. And this is a little bit harder for something that has a lot of words because they're very expanded. It's not a condensed font; it's an expanded font. So you get less of a chance. You can fit less words in the same space. But part of what I was doing with Pandora's Bones was trying to put less words on every page, because that's a thing I have to work on. I'm very verbose in the way that I write. If you look at this simple comic, there's somebody in my life who will look at things like this and say, too many words. You don't want to, it's just too many words. And so it's good to have that other voice in my head, because my voice is, I like these old things like MASH where they would just go on, the joke would just go on and on and on and on. And you don't need that. You can say more with less. Let me see if I can actually find Pandora's, I'll show you guys what that looked like. I don't know if I still have it. Now, here we go.
Yeah, I'll read some of the comments.
I want to show Chris, because this is interesting.
Okay.
I do want to read the comments, but Chris, to answer your question, this is how I picked my font. I actually made this. I made this little file where I went through and showed the same text with different fonts. And which one did I like better? Which one did I feel was going to have the right feel against my artwork? So anyway, that's kind of how I do it. I'm sorry, I think we lost the NYC. Nefarious NYC's got comments. It was nice seeing you. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
You want to see more piggies.
This is, yes. And then last comment.
Yep.
Definitely pay attention to Cubicle Pigs. It's got nuggets.
That's funny. Here's a look at the Pandora's Bones page one.
Wow.
I
Nice.
did. There's a lot. Like, it starts in Baltimore. I live here in Baltimore, so this is down at the harbor, and I just wanted to evoke that feel that you get when you're down there at Fells Point. There's a Max's Tap Room right there.
Yep.
It's just, if you look at the amount of detail that I'm putting into this, that's insane. And I just couldn't do this. Like, the idea was, I wanted to see how much I could put into it, and in the end, I just felt like, why am I putting so much into it? So, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
cool, and I
a
liked
lot.
it. But it's an awful lot for something like that. So I only got these 2 pages done, and I like them a lot. But I just felt like I know that it wasn't. The word I kept saying was it's not sustainable. So she's playing soccer. This is also inspired by the Hurt Locker, right? There's a lot of the Hurt Locker in this. And then the
I love
shot,
that movie.
you just want to see. I want every page to look just like this, and I just felt like my son was wrapping up his last year of high school, and I felt like I don't want to be on the table all the time when he is available. So I stopped working on it for a while. I may pick it up again in the future when my life settles down a little bit. But I just felt like I didn't want to be an absentee father, an absentee husband, and that's where this leads, because it's just hours and hours and hours. I'm just not very fast at this kind of work. But anyway, that's Pandora's Bones. I only did the 2 pages, and then you get this.
Well, it's still work. I mean, you got a strip done in about an hour, but
Right.
you already developed what goes into it, and so it's just a matter of putting the pieces in the right place, and
Well, I had people saying to me on Moontown, I don't know why you can't look for some shortcuts. So now this is shortcuts, right? This
Yep.
thing is it's all shortcuts, and I'm happy with them, because I think in the end, I wind up with something that I can accept, and I think that's the point. Kind of get to the point
Right.
where I can accept the result. I like the result, so then I'm not cheating myself, and I'm not cheating the audience.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a difficult thing. I know plenty of artists who, it's like I love crazy detail, and therefore I'll, as long as I work on projects with crazy detail, I'll take as long as I take. Um, but also at the same extent, I want to approach some things with a simpler style, so I can have all the worlds, and
Right.
it's really a process to learn what looks good with fewer lines and fewer cues as to what you're looking at.
Yeah.
um, it's really a gift, and yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of your work, and still are, and it was great having you on.
Well, thanks. It was good being here. I'm really glad that you contacted me, and I look forward to coming over here again.
Thank you so much. All
All
right,
right.
everybody. If you haven't already, give the video a like, subscribe if you haven't. I'll be around again in 2 days, and have a great night. This was fun.
All right. See you, everybody.